And what do we see inside? Hello, welcome to WayPoint Survival. Today, we're going to talk about Horace Kephart's fire kit. Stay tuned. For those of you who have studied Horace Kephart, you know that he was an accomplished individual in many areas. Not only was he an avid and skilled woodsman, but also a prolific writer with several hundred articles and multiple books to his name. He was highly educated, very well read, and very well traveled, having spent time in multiple states across the United States, even traveling abroad and living in Italy for over a year. He was also an excellent shot, a skilled marksman, or a sharpshooter as they called it back then, and he even organized a sharpshooter outfit and petitioned the government to send them into the Spanish-American War in the late 1890s. He wrote an entire book on firearms and their uses, and even helped develop different kinds of bullets, working on ballistics for different companies. As we continue to film this series, I've been trying to take each item that he would have used and break it down into its components. With the best of my research, whatever I can find out based on his writings, not only from Camping and Woodcraft, but also magazine articles. I have several original magazines from the late 19-teens and early 1920s. And of course, I've also been in contact with his great-granddaughter, Libby Kephart Hargrave, who has given me a lot of really great information and some things that perhaps are not well known. So I've been drawing from multiple resources to try to pull this together for you. One thing we know about Horace Kephart is that he really didn't like to carry things in his pockets. He was very fond of carrying things in pouches as well as his pack. And of course, many people, desire to do the same thing these days. So that's not anything new, but he had worked out a pretty good system. Now, we don't know exactly what pouches he carried. We don't know exactly every single detail. Many of those things have been lost to time. And unfortunately, when his wife's home burnt to the ground, Laura Kephart, they lost a lot of things that we could probably use today for research. So a lot of that stuff has just vanished into the distance of history. So we do our best, based on what he wrote, some of the sketches and drawings, as well as the few photographs that we have of his outdoor gear, to try to put together a good list and a really good idea, hopefully, of what he would have carried. So here we have on our belt similar items to what Horace Kephart would have carried. First of all, of course, we see his famous sheath knife that he loved to carry. I've showed you this in multiple episodes. You will be seeing it, of course, quite a lot over the next few videos we do about him. He was also fond of a .22 automatic, and then, of course, his small hatchet, which he loved to carry and enjoy. And he said unless he was on a major trek, he would always be with what he called this little trick. And we'll be getting more into this and this kit as time goes on. You've already seen his main survival pouch. This would be a possibles pouch in any other era, of course, and he probably based a lot of what he carried based on his research of the Wild West. He was a huge fan of the pioneer days, and I think living in the mountains in North Carolina and eastern Tennessee, there in the Smoky Mountains, actually kind of gave him a sense of what it must have been like to be on the frontier. But here we have another pouch, and in this pouch we have what we're calling his fire kit, again based on what he would have carried when he went into the backcountry and trekking through the mountains. Now, while Kephart did have a separate fire kit, he also insisted that a camper should forever carry fire in their pocket, meaning that you should have dry matches on hand. And interestingly enough, back in those days, even though they knew about other methods, and he mentioned some which I will show here, but matches were pretty much their preferred method of carrying them. And this is a Payson's indelible ink canister. And it's the perfect size, and it lends itself to carrying some matches with the tips down. These would be coated in wax, and he had a proprietary treatment that he loved to treat his matches on. Some of his friends even suggested that he should market his waterproof matches. I also have a paper striker in here as an extra, even though these are strike anywhere matches, but he would always carry this. Very, very important to have on hand regardless, and on your body, in your pocket. And now I'd like to thank the sponsor of today's video, Tecovas Boots. I've been wearing these boots, the Tecovas Long Haul Waterproof Mock Composite Toe Boot, for several months now. Every time I put them on, I'm amazed at how good they feel on my feet. They came right out of the box with that broken-in feeling, and they've only gotten better with use. I found them to be completely waterproof. They shrug off long hikes with ease and are well suited for any job. From climbing a ladder and nailing on a few shingles on the log cabin, to hauling firewood for the fire. These boots continue to function well in every environment that I've put them in. They're great for riding a bike on the trails, and when I'm splitting wood with a splitting maul, The composite safety toe gives peace of mind. They're excellent for farm work and as well as general homestead duties, and when they're cleaned up and oiled, they still look great for that trip into town. So if you'd like a pair of tough, waterproof, durable boots like these, or if you'd like to check out any of their other work or Western boots, make sure and click on the link in the description box below, or you can click on the QR code that's been showing on your screen. And when you do, make sure and use the code WayPoint10 to get 10% off your first purchase. And once again, thanks to Tecovas for sponsoring this video and for making boots that work and play as hard as we do. The other thing that he liked to carry would be a pocket knife of some sort. And this is a 3-bladed Schrade Walden. And he always made sure that one blade was kept absolutely razor sharp for medical or surgical things, such as cutting away necrotic tissue or doing any quick surgeries on oneself for a first aid. But this would be very similar, high grade, just full carbon steel knife. Have to keep it oiled, of course. If you take care of it though, they're easy to sharpen and maintain. So these two things would have been in his pockets. Now do remember that these are not the only matches that he carried. In the other pouch that I'm carrying on the belt, there are more matches as well. And they carried lots of matches, maybe a couple hundred matches wherever they went, because that was their main means of starting fire. Kephart's motto about fire could probably be summed up in something like this, that he believed in redundancy. So you'd have a match safe on your person and then also have a tinderbox in your pack. So you would have multiple ways to start a fire. So opening up our bag here, and this is just an antler with a button on the back to keep it from pulling through, because there's a lot of pressure put on here if you don't have a snap, and that's just a simple way to make a closure. And then if you need to tighten it, you can pull down on these and snug that on down for travel. But basically I leave this loose enough where it can just loop in around the back, and if I do need to tighten it, I can. But generally once I get it jammed in tight behind there and you can pull on a little bit, it's not going to come loose. So just a little trick for you there if you're trying to put one of these together and you don't want to pull it through the leather. That gives you extra security. First thing we're pulling out of the pouch is a flint and steel kit. And this is the steel here. It's very flat, so you could slip it in your pocket if you would need to. It also has a couple of loops, so if you wanted to put this around your neck and carry it, you could. This would be very old. It has a hook right here that goes under this brass piece, so you push it in like this, connect it in, and then it stays nice and tight and shut. Opening it up, we've got a little bit of jute in here, just a little bit that's been frayed and shredded apart. We also have our flint, and then when you close this, you can hold it this way and take these, of course, and you're familiar with, there we go, some good sparks out of it. So this is a nice backup for him, but for Kephart, he really didn't prefer to use this. He wanted to use matches, because again, with a match, you've got something that the fire starts instantly, and you've already got a piece of wood attached. So old guys loved those matches, they really did. The next item is not something that he talked about carrying a lot, but he did mention it in some of his writings, and that would be a decent burning glass. Today we would call it a magnifying glass, but of course the bigger that it is and the larger diameter that you have, the easier it is to get something started. This only works on bright sunny days, so again, this is something that you wouldn't be able to use in really bad weather, so it's certainly not a dependable fire starter. Although it is a forever fire starter, this never wears out. And you would have to stop in the middle of the day at high noon or something, especially in the winter, to get a fire started, and then you wouldn't be able to move the rest of the day. But if you do get one of these, you want to make sure you get some sort of a small pouch like this. Fits inside, and that will protect it and keep it from getting broken as well as getting scratched up. The next item that we have is in this little bullion box. And it's very small and flat, and again, all of these components are, if you would need to, small enough to stick into your pocket. So if you don't have the pouch and you're going off, you can keep this. However, this has a lot of things in it that Kephart recommended carrying. So let's get into that right now. So this is not a hinged lid, this is just a press fit top. So it comes off like that. And what do we see inside? Well, some of the things that Kephart recommended. First of all, he liked lighter wood, or fat wood, fat lighter wood it's also called. There's different names for it depending on where the states are. But we have a few slivers here of fat wood, and fat wood is pine where the resin has drained into it and hardened. find this on dead pine branches as well as pine stumps. He would have carried some of that. He also would have carried a small stub of a candle. And the idea behind this is that you use one of your matches and you light this candle, and then the candle you can hold in place with your hand, and then you can put your wet wood or damp tinder or your small branches or twigs or whatever you have in the candle flame, and it will burn much longer than a match, and it will give you not only light but also a way to dry out your tinder and get a fire started in emergencies. And most of your early woodsmen, going way back even into the 18th century, they carried a stub of a candle for that reason. It also has a secondary use. If you think you're going to be in wet weather or something like that, you can actually melt some wax and you can drip it over the seam of your match safe, and that will waterproof it so that if you do happen to go under, you can just pry that off and you'll have dry matches inside. So a wax has multiple uses besides just fire starting. The next item is something you're all familiar with. It would be several pieces of charred cloth. And of course this would be kept extremely dry. You wouldn't want to get that all damp for any reason. So you keep that separate, and that's to strike the sparks from the steel and the flint on there. This is something that will always catch. Some of these other things of course won't. And then we have several bits of pine resin. So when you're collecting your fat wood, try to find a pine tree that has had some injuries to the tree, and where it's allowed the sap to ooze out, you can pick off some of these harder pieces and you can use that for a fire extender. This stuff as a fire extender will burn super well, and I don't know if you've ever lit this or not, but it's pretty amazing. So here we have some of this pitch, and we're going to touch a match to it and you can get an idea how well that burns. I don't want to hang on to it much, but you put that in the fire and whew, that was hot. Yeah, got a little bit of a drip on me. But you put that in a fire and that will give you an amazing flame extender right there. So definitely something you want to keep and gather and harvest when you're out in the backcountry, as Kephart recommended. The last thing that I want to show you is some pieces of birch bark. Now, birch bark doesn't grow at my latitude here in southern Ohio, so whenever I'm up in Michigan or places north of here, Pennsylvania for instance, you can easily find different kinds of birch. There's silver birch, there's yellow birch, there's black birch, and this is a silver birch. And so there's several slivers of it in here already torn, and then there's a large piece down here in the bottom. Now, something about birch bark that some people perhaps don't know if you don't have it available to you is that this will burn even when it's wet. So it's a very good resource. And because birch trees grow their bark in layers around the outside, you can actually peel off a couple of thin layers off of a live birch and it won't hurt the tree. You don't take a whole lot, of course, but just enough to get an emergency fire started. And another thing about birch trees, once the birch tree dies, it'll lay on the ground and the inner core, the wood part of the birch, will absolutely rot away. But there's so much oil in this birch oil, that the bark will just last for years and years and years. And you can often find a birch tree with the center just completely rotted out of it, and then this tube of birch bark that you can access and take with you, take it home and dry it out. And I don't know if any of you have seen this burn. A lot of you have, but I'll show you what that looks like. And in case you're wondering, I'm using this nail to strike the matches on. You can see there, does pretty good. And then we simply touch it to the birch bark, and you can see how amazingly that burns. I mean, that's just really good. So no wonder Kephart liked it. Whew, got to get rid of that. That was nice and warm too. So here it is all laid out together, and it doesn't really seem like a whole lot of items, but for a man of Kephart's skill level and his ability and his experience, it was plenty. And of course, remember that he carried a lot of matches. That was just the go-to. They were cheap, they were plentiful, easy to replace, and just like a Bic lighter is considered today, it was instant fire. And of course, they had trench lighters and fuel lighters like that. Those actually go back into the 1820s. They were actually invented before matches. But anyway, the bottom line is that once matches were invented, pretty much all woodsmen went to them because they just found them to be the easiest and most reliable fire ignition source in just about any type of emergency. This kit is so compact and lightweight that I can easily hold it in one hand. Matches, flint and steel, along with a pouch for tinder, all of our extra spare tinder in a nice little box, our magnifying burning lens, and then of course the all-important pocket knife. But you can see why this will be easy to pack and carry and why Kephart could keep his kit so light. This is James Bender for WayPoint Survival. If you like this video, please give it a thumbs up. Also make sure and check out the links in the description box below just under the More button. While you're down there, you'll find our link for our WayPoint Survival digital class. This is where you can sign up to train in the top 20 skills that we consider to be the most important from our Phase 1 Survival and Bushcraft class. You'll also find the waypointsurvival.com link, and this is where you can train in person here at our beautiful training facility in Southern Ohio. And if you haven't already done so, please subscribe to the channel. We'd really appreciate it. And when you do subscribe, make sure and press that bell button so that you can be notified of all of our upcoming videos, and we'll talk to you next time.